Welcome back to the Recharged in 30 podcast. I'm your co-host, Samina.
I'm your co-host Nafisa. We're very excited about today's topic on the smart home. But before that, Recharged in 30 is brought to you by Naked, hassle-free instant online insurance. Naked Financial Technology is an authorized FSP.
I am personally very excited for this episode because every time you told me about a new update to your smart home setup, I think, oh wow, how cool, and then promptly forget about it. Now, this might seem like a very basic question, but what actually is a smart home?
So a smart home is a home with internet-connected devices and appliances that you can control remotely, basically from anywhere in the world. You can automate things, run them on schedules, add a timer, so it does what it needs to do without human intervention. So, smart.
Okay, cool. So, where and how do you start building a smart home?
Yeah, so the most important thing to remember about building a smart home is that it's a constant work in progress. You don't have to go out on a weekend and buy everything you can find and start linking it up. So when I get asked this for advice, this is what people think they need to do. But you have to plan or you will be actually very broke. So the best way to start is by linking to one main device, and which is a smart speaker that is central to a smart home. And you can then use it for things like your light switches, light bulbs, TVs, air conditioners, appliances, robot vacuums, security cameras, blinds, doorbells, even smart plugs.
Wow.
So those are a lot of things you can. We're obviously going to go through some. But choosing a smart speaker actually comes down to preference and what devices you have in that ecosystem and the voice assistant. So if you're following me, you know I love Apple as a brand, but Siri is a no from me. I prefer Google Assistant when it comes to compatibility because Google covers everything.
So when you say Google covers everything, do you mean that it's more compatible when connecting to other devices or smart home editions? Why do you prefer it over Siri?
So I think it's fair to say that Google had the lead very early on when it comes to voice assistants, and my experience with Siri was not great when they started. So at that onset, I think for me it was, okay, Google is actually doing this better. And I felt Apple is very limiting on their smart devices, on their speakers rather. So yeah, I think with the whole ecosystem tie-in, I like that Google obviously pairs with my iPhone, and I prefer it in this instance and how well the voice commands work, just interacting.
Okay, no, that makes sense then. So then once someone has chosen their preferred brand, how do they go about choosing their speaker? Like, does it matter which one you choose? And like, how many do you need? And how do you decide what to go for? Because there's so many options.
Yeah, so I was toying with the idea of getting a smart speaker for a while and I hadn't, but it just so happened that my brother-in-law gifted me a Google Mini. I think he ended up with a bunch or he bought them. And yeah, that was how I started off with a Google Mini. I knew I wanted a Google based on what I just said. And then afterwards, I think I was in Japan and they were really cheap. So I just bought a few more. And then I actually ended up winning another one at a Google event. So yes, I do have 4 Google Mini smart speakers in my home. And yeah, so the decision to buy them more was just based on me already liking what Google was doing for me. And like Siri was not an option. So I subsequently to that, I own 2 more Amazon speakers and I think an Amazon Fire TV stick. So I do have a bunch more devices, like an Echo tablet version for my kitchen. I'll touch more on that later. And then mainly to sync with my Ring products, which we'll also cover. Ring is owned by Amazon. And I have an Echo Dot speaker, which was really cheap when I got it. It's like the version of the Google Mini, but the Amazon version. But for anyone listening, you need to decide what speaker for the functionality, or if you want it for both, like functionality and audio. For me, I have separate speakers. I've got a subwoofer. I've got stuff connected to my TV. I don't need it for the audio quality. But just say you're living on your own and you want it all to do one thing. You want to play your music when you have friends over. You're calling people for a braai or a little party. You also can think of that. Then you can go for a speaker, a high-end speaker, like a Sonos, or maybe even Xiaomi speakers are really powerful. So that's something to consider. For me, Google Mini was cheap and easy to buy. That's why I went with it. But if you want audio quality, this is something you must decide and then go for maybe a bigger version. Google does have bigger speakers, and then obviously, like I mentioned, the Sonos or a Xiaomi. As long as it has Google Assistant, I think you'll be good.
Okay. Oh, I didn't even think of that as like a consideration because I didn't realize also that, you might need it might need like a high quality speaker to play your music and not just take voice commands. So what about setup? Is it easy? For example, do you need to do it yourself, or do you have to bring anyone in? Are there any additional costs involved?
So setting up a speaker is easy. In South Africa, you can very easily set it up on a Google or Apple speaker because of app availability. But you may need a workaround if you're buying an Amazon Echo speaker. I do have a US App Store account from back when, so I downloaded that version. But you can change things like location, language if you go that route. But yeah, it's as easy as just plugging the speaker in and linking it to your phone, and then it's paired. It's really simple. You don't actually need electrician. You just need to connect it, link it like how you would any other Bluetooth device.
Oh,
Yeah. But if you do want to go the Amazon route, you would need some technical knowledge or having access to another app store, an international version that has the app on it. So when you are setting up, I do have a useful tip though. I recommend that everybody create a separate household email address only for your smart devices. I personally don't feel comfortable using my existing or my primary email addresses for any smart devices. Like, I'm not sure whether we hear some of the companies say they don't record the audio, everything you ask, but then before you know it, oh, sorry, it's dumped on the cloud. Oh, by mistake, we didn't delete it.
right.
There's a lot of that goes around. I think for your own privacy reasons, you should not use any existing email address, or rather create a household account, and however many people in your household, whether it's a family member, whatever, spouse, kids, you can all share and get access to that same email address and link all your smart devices.
I think that's really, really great advice, because I think you should stay safe and not like leave your other accounts.
Yeah, for me, it's
vulnerable.
all about not putting all your eggs in one basket. I think it just comes down to that. And for me, separate email address for every smart, so that means you can use the same email address for every smart device you then set up.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Okay, so now that your speaker is set up, we're excited to get started. What is the most satisfying first addition to your smart home that doesn't leave you in broke tears?
Okay, a bit of a tricky one so definitely the ability to control your lights, I think, through voice or an app, which means it can be done remotely as long as your home is connected to a Wi-Fi network and you have a data connection on your phone. I mean, it's always fun, never gets old. It just lets you be efficient in case you forgot to switch the lights off. So there are two ways to do this. One is to buy a smart Wi-Fi light switch, which I recommend, but it does require planning cost-wise. You rather do your whole house at once. So you can just call in an electrician. This requires outside assistance, obviously a professional. So instead of doing it in bits and pieces. And the other method is to do it to just change the light bulbs. But in terms of the smart light switch, I can vouch for the Sonoff brand. You can get it at Takealot and a bunch of other places. So the other method works for like smaller apartments. Like if you're renting or if you can't make changes to the property, then you can buy the smart light bulb to keep your costs down in the short term. So you must pay attention to the hours or the lifespan of the bulb to see if it's an economical option for you. I just think it's easier to switch the light switches because you can use any chandelier or any fancy lighting stuff that you already have installed.
Right.
Because the other one may have a limitation when, if you go the light bulb route. Yeah, and so what I love about linking all the lights is that you can then use one command to control your whole house. I think ours is set up with Alexa to do this. So before I leave home, if I have any things I need to attend, I just say, Alexa, switch off all the lights.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I think at the time of setup, we couldn't find a way to do it with Google Assistant, and we haven't looked. So if anyone's listening out there and you do have a similar setup with one command on Google, maybe let me know. But it works for the Amazon to do everything. Otherwise, I can just open the app if I'm sitting in Durban, hypothetically, and just checking maybe my domestic worker has a light on, or whatever the case is. I'm just giving an example. I can switch it off from wherever I am, even if I'm abroad.
That is so handy. That's so super helpful. So I know from some of your previous articles and social posts, you mentioned that you have motion sensors for lights. How does that fit in?
Motion sensors are great, actually. We have a few scattered around the house that triggers the lights to come on when it detects movement. But because this is all about a smart home, you can choose what times you to have them running. So ours runs in the evenings or at night. So not during the day when I'm at home and the sun is out. So it's like, when you wake up in the middle of the night and you use the bathroom sometimes your eyes may not be fully open. So it'll trigger it to switch the bathroom lights on. You can have it set up that way. Or if you walk into the lounge in the evening after sunset, then it'll automatically switch on. And you can actually do this with soft lights in your bathroom if you want this, like for waking up in the middle of the night. So it won't, be a shock to your system kind of thing.
Wait, so you can decide how brightly the light comes on depending on the time of day?
Uh, not quite. No, no, that's not. Sorry, what I meant to say. I just mean that when the sun is out and it's during the day, then I don't have the feature turned on. It's not scheduled to work during the day because I probably wouldn't need to switch my lights on during the day through motion.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. No, I was just wondering, is the motion sensor linked to your normal lights? So you can like customize it so it's not that bright at a certain time, like so at night? Or is it a separate like light bulb that works with the motion sensor?
Oh, I see. Okay, so I misinterpreted what you were asking me. So yeah, this you can actually choose what light you want it tied to. So you can have a soft light and make that your motion sensor light. Yeah,
Okay.
so the motion sensor will be for that particular light. So yes, technically you can.
Oh, I love how customizable that is. That's really cool. So are the sensors themselves then a different product, or do they work in with your sort of Wi-Fi switch system, Wi-Fi connected switch system?
Yeah, they are a separate product that you can buy. There's lots of third-party ones you can search for. Ring, I know if you have their alarm system, they do give you two, I think, but you can buy more. And then there are so many other options. Like it's very tricky to recommend brands because you just go on Takealot or you search on Google and you'll find a whole bunch of brands. They're not very expensive.
Okay, cool. So then you have almost like a sort of a slightly parallel system of like lights coming on based on the motion sensors alone.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, okay, cool. That makes sense. That's awesome. Um, yeah, and I'm busy taking notes here. Hopefully this time I'll actually go through with it and add some of these to my own home. Are there any other smaller smart home devices that you can also buy?
Yeah, so for the other little things, like for any other appliance, you can actually connect them to smart plugs. So these are Wi-Fi plugs that you can link on your smartphone home app, and you can control them anywhere as well. They usually link on their own platform based on the brand you purchase, but most of them, if not all, integrate with Google, with the Google Assistant. And then sometimes the box will tell you if it pairs with Samsung SmartThings, if that's your preferred system, or Apple HomeKit.
Mm.
What I've noticed though with these plugs, you get two versions of it. One is separate for Apple HomeKit. I don't know what's that reason, but like I mentioned earlier, I don't use Apple stuff.
Mm.
So the default ones should work with Google Assistant. And I know that I keep mentioning Google Assistant. It's obviously I'm referring to what I have, and because I find it to be the most compatible system with everything else. Obviously, Samsung is still newish, and Apple doesn't have support for everything.
Mm.
So that's why I keep mentioning it. But yeah, these little smart plugs are actually quite clever because just say you used a hair tool and you can't remember if you switched it off and you left home, then you can just obviously go into the app and like switch that particular plug on, or keep that hair tool plugged to that smart plug, if you know what I mean.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I find another little nice smaller little item would be an LED strip lights. So you mentioned earlier about controlling the type of light. So I think the motion sensor attached to an LED strip light would be actually quite clever because I had some in my previous office and I don't have it in my new one. But they're a nice soft light, and you can change the colors, and like if you can have it in a living area, a lounge, your kids' bedrooms, passageways, and yeah, even in your bathroom, and you can attach it as you walk, it'll kind of light up. So I think that's a very cool effect. But yeah, those are cheap.
I mean, those sound really nice, and especially for like those spots in your house that don't get enough light. So I, for example, have like my clothing cupboards are in a bit of like a passage area. So when I open them, they block out all the light, and then I can't really see well in them. So I think that would be very helpful to have motion sensor lights in that cupboard that are also like maybe timed. I don't know. Can you time LED strip lights? No, no.
You can set it on the app, yes. But funny
Oh.
that you mentioned that whole scenario. I actually bought those motion sensor lights for my cupboards from Shein. It was actually, weirdly enough, one
Oh.
of the first tech items I purchased on Shein.
Oh,
They
cool.
were very cheap. I think I posted about it less than 200-ish, I think, per strip light.
And how are they working
Not
for
strip
you?
light, just a little cupboard light. They're working great. You just recharge them every now and then. Obviously, people want to know how long it lasts. Well, basically, it depends how often you open your cupboards. Like in the
Mm.
morning when you're changing, and then in the evening for your pajamas, right?
Mm.
So they can last longish. I think I charge them maybe once a month.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's that particular scenario you described. You should, hey, go check out my post.
Yeah, I should. Actually, now I'm remembering that you did post about it, but I actually didn't realize that they were LED, like the strip
Yes,
lights.
they're actually
I should
genius
actually
for
check them
that.
out.
So that particular one, I must say, is also, I don't have it on the smart system. That I just open the door and it knows my door is open and the light comes on. So I think that's brilliant for a cupboard situation.
Yeah, something that you're not using as often, but would be very helpful to have light there, because then you don't have to charge it as often, and you don't have to replace them as often either.
Yeah, I think it also works great in a kitchen and under counter lights and stuff.
And sometimes you can also just have mood lighting, like that could be quite nice. But then I
Yes.
suppose they don't have to be motion sensor for that.
No,
Okay.
that's the one I think works with the timer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Cool. Okay, I'm learning so much. This is great. So let's talk a bit about entertainment, the smart TV, how to stream things. What are our options? I know we have a lot.
Yeah, okay, so with this, I find it doesn't strictly tie into your smart speaker, but it's still a smart item. I say that because sometimes I found that when I linked a dongle or a streaming device to the Google Voice, it's a bit cumbersome to use your voice. I mean, nobody wants to like keep switching on their TV and off with a voice. It's a bit weird. Just do it. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but like the old-fashioned way by picking up your TV remote, you know. But that said, I find with the smart TV setup, you don't necessarily have to fork out for the most expensive TV, as long as you know what boxes it ticks for you. So for me, it must support 4K or Ultra HD, a specific refresh rate if you're going to game on it, or if you want to plug in any audio equipment, and that it has to have enough HDMI ports depending what you want to connect to it. And just general USB ports if you still connect stuff that way. So that would be a good place to start to find a TV. Then you can add, for me, I think this is the best way, a smart TV stick or a streaming box, like your Amazon Fire TV stick, a Chromecast, and a bunch of other sticks. And then the streaming box would be your Apple TV, Xiaomi, Skyworth, that kind of thing. So I think you need to pay attention to things like if you want high quality audio to pass through and how many HDMI ports you would need.
Can I ask, what is the difference between the box and the stick?
So the box usually requires an additional power outlet that you're plugging, and then the stick just plugs through an HDMI port. And the stick is more portable, plug and play, that kind of thing.
But does
It's the same thing.
Oh, it's the same. Okay.
Basically, it gives you access to the same apps.
Okay.
But
cool.
so I do find that TVs that have access to apps, I mean, they all want to make their own ecosystem, which is great, but sometimes there are compatibility issues. I find that it's easier to buy a TV that supports maybe Android TV now, or just connect an Apple TV or a Mi Box or equivalent. So you know that your apps will come from Google and Apple. I think that for me is the key message here. Make sure your apps come from an existing platform. I'm not here to knock other TV brands, but there was a big launch a few years ago, a highly anticipated streaming app that launched, and certain people who bought a specific brand of TV, they were told it was compatible and they never actually brought it on. So it obviously causes this kind of issue. Don't rely on the TV's ecosystem to download. So rather plug a streaming dongle if you can. But I would say Samsung appears to be very on the ball with app availability and compatibility just because they're so large. So you could get away, if you have a nice Samsung TV, you may find all the apps that you need. Yeah. So just to go back on the streaming stick thing, I mentioned the Xiaomi Skyworth, Amazon Fire TV stick, even a Roku Express. And I was browsing Tech a lot and I noticed they had something called an Android TV stick, which looked interesting. That should be good enough. I mean, if you're on a budget, you can just buy something that not necessarily have a brand. But your streaming box options then would be like your Apple TV, your Xiaomi Mi Box, Media Box Maverick, and then the Roku Ultra. The difference with the Roku, the Ultra is the box and the Roku Express is the stick. So another reason I love the sticks, or I would recommend them as a first option, I know you asked the difference. Obviously, you just need HDMI. So if you're traveling, you can actually take all your TV with you. You can't really see me say the air quotes with TV, but it means you already logged into your accounts. You don't have to use some random hotel TV to log in and forget your password, and it's just not secure.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, because I've had that experience, because you end up somewhere and then you have to like log into everything and then like remember to log out, and you just see it's like other people's profiles, and it just doesn't. You're right, it just doesn't feel safe.
Sounds like a nightmare.
It really is. So now I know, because clearly I haven't been paying attention because I didn't know a streaming stick was a thing. So I think maybe that would be a really great purchase to.
Yeah, those sticks actually have, because like I mentioned earlier, it's all about the operating system. As long as you're getting it from Google, who has availability of all the apps, then you don't have to worry about whether your TV is compatible. It's more about the stick and the operating system on the stick.
Because then your TV then becomes just the screen.
Yeah. And I mean, I know it's very limited, but credit to Google Play Store. That's they have everything on it, and that's the one you want.
Mm.
Although I do have an Amazon Fire TV stick, it doesn't have the same compatibility, but yeah, Android is definitely better in that regard.
Okay. Okay, good to know. So let's talk smart security. What are your favorite options?
Yeah, so one of the best things about a smart home is actually buying smart cameras and video doorbells. I have tested and purchased the Ring brand. I mean, if I didn't test it, I wouldn't realize how good it is, but it does have a subscription tied to it. I'll get to that shortly. So Ring is owned by Amazon. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they make really accessible products and some entry level ones that's very easy to set up. It's sometimes plug and play, but these are for like cameras if you want either an indoor or outdoor camera. I know a lot of people ask about security for their kids, like if they leave them alone or if they have someone looking after the kids, they want to check in. So the indoor cameras work great. That you don't need any technical knowledge. It's like literally plug and play, and you connect it to your phone. You would need the Ring camera app for this. The other options are, a Ring video doorbell. So the reason I love a doorbell, I can, if I'm anywhere in the world, I keep making that reference because I travel so much. But basically, if someone's at my door, I can check on my phone and see who's there and speak to them. It has the two-way system. So a lot of Ring's cameras actually does have two-way. But like if you're checking in on a toddler, I mean, you can't really speak to them. So that's not the issue, not a problem. But with the doorbell, I wanted to add, you actually need an electrician to install those. So that would require the an onset. But the problem with Amazon, or they're very sneaky, I find their Ring stuff is actually not compatible with any of your smart speakers. So that's also partially the reason I have Amazon speakers, although it's not necessary. As long as you have the Ring app on your smartphone, it's great. And it's nice. In a way, it feels maybe rather keep your security stuff separate. But with my setup, with as I mentioned, the Google and the Amazon stuff, just say you drive to my house, and then I'll get a notification on my TV because my Amazon Fire TV stick is connected to my TV. The whole interface will take over and say, "There's someone at your door. We detected motion." It'll feed straight into the camera, and I can see your car at my gate.
Okay. I mean, that must make life a lot easier, especially when you like receiving packages and things like that.
Yeah, but another thing to add about smart security cameras, not all of them are compatible with your own security company. If you subscribe to something in your area, if you have like an arm response system, they also, you know how everyone wants to make money their own way.
Yeah.
So they're going to be like, sorry, no, we're not compatible. Just say, for example, the Ring alarm system I mentioned earlier, if that triggers, that's not necessarily connected to my company, my alarm company.
Oh, right.
My arm response. So you need to make sure you think about stuff like that. If you have access to a security company that works with your Ring alarm, that would be great. But it's definitely something to consider. And depending on if you get indoor and outdoor, like I mentioned, you may need an electrician to set them up. I think this whole Ring and other brands, sorry, I have tested Xiaomi and other products. They really made it easily and accessible now for people. Like if you're a woman living alone and you're worried about, whoever's passing through your passage, or you don't know who's trying to enter your property, or whatever the case is, you can just have that for the extra peace of mind. I think that little bit of layer of security makes such a difference. You can always monitor, and also with these motion sensors, they're so clever. You can have a schedule around it. So for example, my gardener comes in on certain times in the week, so then we just disable the motions from when he's working. Otherwise, you can just imagine
You'll be getting notifications all the time.
Yeah, it's very clever, and you can also go into a bit more detail in terms of which areas you want barricaded off to pick up the motion, and then it has human detection, or if you don't want it to pick up animals, that kind of thing. So I think it's those setups are worth looking into because it's very granular.
The one question I did have is, can you open your gate using Ring, or is that like a separate system? You can't integrate Ring into like your actual gate.
That's actually a great question. And no, you actually can't open it with the Ring camera, but you can interact with people and check with them. And in the past, I've actually told delivery guys to please like go to my security guard and drop off packages if I wasn't at home. But that will work, I think, separately with your own intercom system. However, on the little smart device kind of options that you get, I know there's an option to add something to your garage, so that can open you can sort of automate that, but not your main gate. But similarly, like how it's attached to a motor of a garage, you may be able to have it for your gate, but I don't have it and haven't looked into it.
Okay, that would be interesting to explore. Um, Thank you so much. This has actually been so helpful. And I didn't realize just how much the smart universe has grown, so much that we haven't even touched on robot vacuums and air fryers and other big smart appliances. But I suppose that's what future episodes are for.
And look out for that episode because our sponsor Naked will be giving away a robot vacuum.
Oh, exciting. We hope you've learned the basics of setting up a smart home. If you like switching your lights on and off from your phone, you'll love not having to speak to anyone to set up your home insurance. You can do it in 3 minutes on the Naked app or website. Naked Financial Technology is an authorized FSP.
As always, feel free to reach out to us on any of our Recharged ZA platforms. If you have any comments or questions about this episode, we're happy to help. And we'll catch you in the next one.